Watching Byline Wilmington on CBS 10 WILM. Here's your host, Don Ansell.
And we're back. Our guest this morning, Cantwell from the Wilmington Star News and Star News Online, and Rhonda Bellamy, host of Talk Radio's On the Waveline with Rhonda Bellamy. And we're talking about the top stories of the year 2008, the top news stories. All right, so we have Joe the plumber. What's your take on why that story caught fire, Rhonda?
I think we needed a poster child for the average American, and I'm not certain that that worked out. As we've seen in the past couple of weeks, he said he wanted to get off the bus. He was totally disgusted by some of what he heard from Senator McCain, and so for him to be the poster piece and then it not pan out and go as planned was a little disheartening, I think, for some in the Republican Party who were still holding out hope that they would have somebody they could trot out on issues that were important to Republicans.
Cy, what do you think the fact that Joe the plumber story caught on? What do you think it says about what the public will pick up on?
Well, you never know what's going to be important to them. This was easy to identify with figure. But I was going to say that I think one of the key moments in this campaign came when that economic banking crisis hit. And McCain suspended his campaign, flying back to Washington, going to put the deal together. Are we going to have a debate or not? He said, let's not have a debate. I think that indicated that his campaign was kind of looking for a message on the economy and had trouble finding one. And Joe the plumber finally became the message that the campaign had.
All right, so the election. Rhonda, you mentioned another broad category, the economy. What are some of the biggest stories that spawned? Of course, the $750 billion with the B bailout.
Exactly, and then closely followed by the first $34 billion, whittled down to $14 billion emergency funding bill for the three big automakers. I think was another big story.
Unto itself, the House and Senate vote was very dramatic and compelling.
Well, they had that first bailout bill, and it failed the first time through amid opposition. They came back and A, told people that it was really important, and B, larded it with about another $150 billion worth of pork, and then it passed. So that was interesting to watch that whole thing play out. But a sense that Paulson is acting on his own, Treasury Secretary Paulson is acting on his own, and one day we're going to buy up assets, and the next day we're going to get banks money, is kind of a real question of whether anybody's really in charge or anybody knows what to do.
Yeah, there was a sense that they were making it up as they went along, and that the original purpose, which was to unthaw the credit markets, just wasn't being met.
Did the war in Iraq continue to be a big story this year, or was it relegated to just another campaign issue?
Wasn't that funny? I think it was
petered out.
smaller.
It did, didn't it?
The more successful it was, the more successful the surge was. McCain supporters can be forgiven, feeling a little bit cheated because the surge worked, and so it faded from people's minds.
Well, I think the economy supplanted the concerns about the war in Iraq, and yeah, there were some gains made.
And that helped Obama, didn't it?
Yes.
Because the strategic military was McCain's area.
Exactly.
And that became relegated to.
Exactly, and he was also able to contrast the Democrats' position on the economy, where for years we'd heard Republicans talk about the trickle-down theory that wasn't trickling down anymore. And so I think that it supplanted the attention that we had been giving to the war.
All right, under the category of the biggest political blunder, who would you nominate? I have three nominations. Go ahead.
I think it would have to be McCain with the Palin pick.
Oh, really?
That really backfired on him, and it caused people to question whether he was putting America first or just trying to win an election. At first, like, she gave a great speech at the Republican convention, and I was thinking, wow, well, this was a really smart pick. But as time went on, it didn't look like a very smart
Rhonda?
pick.
I would agree.
I thought the economy is fundamentally sound. I think it sunk his campaign.
Yeah, it was one.
Yeah, that was my number one. Number two was New York Governor Eliot Spitzer and the call girl scandal and his resignation. And we still have one happening now.
Illinois governor.
Yeah, for play for pay.
Blagojevich, yes.
I'm glad I practiced that name last night. Blagojevich, right?
No, Blagojevich.
The Blago guy.
Yeah,
Logo. All right, what about state elections? Was it a lackluster year for North Carolina state elections?
I think that President-elect Barack Obama had long coattails, and that went a long way to ensuring Democratic majorities in the House and Senate, and of course, from governor on down, in fact.
But there wasn't a whole lot of, or was there, interest in what was happening in the state? It didn't seem to be.
Well, there was the same anti-incumbency thing that worked against the Republicans nationally. Looked like it might work against the Democrats statewide. Purdue had a tougher time than we might have expected.
But it didn't catch the interest of the public like the national elections.
No, I don't think so. One thing I wanted to say is that to me it was surprising and fun that North Carolina was such a big part of the national election. We had not had a lot of presidential visits before. Obama, Clinton, and McCain all came to Wilmington this year, which was just great to be at the center stage of this. And I think North Carolina's primary, going so big for Obama when Clinton had made a big play here, was maybe the nail in the coffin for her campaign, although it took a few more weeks for it to play out.
Right, and as you noted, it had been 32 years since North Carolina elected a Democrat for president. And so I think that it was a sign of the times. It's an evolution here in North Carolina.
We're almost out of time in this segment, but before we go to break, how big a story was Dole losing her U.S. Senate seat to a relatively unknown state senator, Hagan?
It would have been a big story if it wasn't entirely expected. She didn't really seem to campaign very much. It was a kind of lackluster effort, and so nobody was very surprised.
And the Godless America ads didn't help.
No, they didn't.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about Prop 8. How big a story was that? Prop 8 passing in California. Our guest this morning, Cy Cantwell from the Star News and Star News Online, Rhonda Bellamy from On the Wave Line with Rhonda Bellamy on Wave Radio, two of our area's leading reporters. We'll be right back.